You know, when we talk about trusting God, people nod their heads, they say amen, and yes, Lord. But the moment life gets shaky, they go right back into fix-it mode. Because here's the truth, we like the idea of faith, but we struggle with the practice of it. It's easy to trust God when the bills are paid, when the doors are opening, when the relationship is smooth, when the diagnosis is clear. But what about when it's not? What about when everything feels stuck, silent, uncertain? That's where real trust is tested. See, most of us don't have a problem believing in God. No, we believe He exists, we believe He's powerful, we even believe He's good. But where we fall short is letting go. Because letting go feels like losing control. And losing control feels like falling. And falling, that's scary. But what if I told you faith is the fall? That's what it is. Faith is saying, God, I don't see the net. I don't know how far the drop is. I don't know how you're gonna catch me. But I'm jumping because I trust that you will. And that kind of trust, it's not passive, it's not weak. It takes strength to surrender. It takes courage to not control everything. It takes boldness to say, I don't know the outcome, but I know the one who holds it. Now let's be real. This is hard because we've been trained to overthink everything. We've been taught to plan our way into peace, to strategize our way out of stress, but there are some things in life that your plan can't fix. There are problems that aren't waiting for a solution, they're waiting for your surrender. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. Letting go means making space for God to step in, because as long as your hands are on it, God will wait. He doesn't force himself into the chaos you're still trying to control. You keep praying, God handle it, but at the same time you keep saying, I got it. You say, God, I give it to you. And then 5 minutes later you take it back. That's not trust. That's negotiation. That's not faith. That's fear in disguise. Listen, God is not a consultant. He's not your spiritual advisor for when your plan doesn't work. He's either Lord of it all, or He's not Lord at all. You want peace. It's not found in figuring it all out. Peace is found in the place of release. When you finally say, God, I can't carry this. I've been thinking too much, stressing too long, fighting battles that aren't even mine. I let go. That's where peace floods in. And when you get to that place, when you really surrender, everything changes. Because now it's not on you to solve it, it's on Him to sustain you. You start walking differently, talking differently, sleeping differently. You don't flinch every time something goes wrong. You don't spiral every time you hit a delay. Why? Because you know who's handling it. You know it's not in your hands anymore. Let me tell you something, you're not in this thing alone. God never asked you to be the architect of your own deliverance. He never called you to carry the weight of what He already promised to carry. If you're tired, there's a reason. If your mind is racing, there's a reason. It's because you've been doing God's job instead of just doing what He asked, to trust. You want to feel free, let go. You want to think clearly, let go. You want peace. Stop trying to run the whole operation. You were never meant to be the CEO of your breakthrough. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is breathe and say, God, I let go. I trust that you already saw this coming. You knew the delay before I got discouraged. You had the answer before I even formed the question. That's real faith. That's what it means to walk with God, not ahead of Him. Not dragging Him into your timeline, but saying, God, wherever you go, I'll follow. However you move, I'll rest in it. Because when you finally release control, you realize something powerful. He was handling it the whole time. And you were just overthinking what He had already overcome. You ever been so deep in your own head that you can't tell the difference between truth and fear. You know what I'm talking about, that late night cycle, the one where your mind won't shut up. You're lying in bed, lights off, house quiet, and suddenly your thoughts get loud. Your heart races, your chest tightens, and before you know it, you've built 100 worst-case scenarios that haven't even happened. That's not wisdom, that's not strategy, that's overthinking, and let me tell you, overthinking is not insight. It's a slow, silent thief. It doesn't just steal your time, it robs you of joy, of peace, of presence. Because when you're overthinking, you're not living, you're calculating, you're not trusting, you're controlling. See, a lot of people think the opposite of peace is chaos, but you want to know what the real opposite of peace is. It's mental noise. It's that anxious inner monologue that tells you, what if this doesn't work out? What if they leave? What if I fail? What if it's never enough? And the dangerous part. That voice sounds like you, so you believe it, but here's what I need you to understand. Every what if that spirals in your mind is not your intuition. It's not God trying to warn you. It's fear in a disguise that you've become too familiar with. And the longer you entertain those thoughts, the deeper you fall into a pit you were never meant to live in. Overthinking convinces you that you're protecting yourself when really you're poisoning yourself. It tells you, think more and you'll be safe. But what actually happens is, you get stuck. Stuck in indecision, stuck in anxiety, stuck in self-doubt. And listen, I get it. Thinking feels like control. And control feels like safety, but real safety doesn't come from knowing all the outcomes. Real safety comes from trusting that even if the worst happens, God is still God, and you'll still be okay. You weren't built to carry the weight of every possibility. You weren't created to solve everything in your head before you ever take a step. You were created to trust, to move, to rest in the knowledge that there's a plan bigger than your analysis. Because the truth is, when you overthink, you shrink God in your life. You make him smaller than your doubt. You make his promises smaller than your fears. You know what I've learned. Sometimes the most spiritual decision you can make is to stop rehearsing the pain before it ever shows up. Some of you are suffering from battles that haven't even happened. You've already lived through the heartbreak 10 times in your mind. You've already failed the exam before you even took it. You've already lost the job, lost the house, lost the person in your mind. And God's saying, why are you tormenting yourself with stories I never wrote? That voice in your head isn't divine. That's fear talking, and you don't owe fear another moment of your life. You want peace, then stop trying to think your way out of every feeling. Stop trying to analyze your way out of uncertainty. Peace doesn't come from knowing everything. Peace comes from believing in something bigger than everything. You know what breaks overthinking. Surrender, not laziness, not avoidance. But surrender, bold, honest surrender that says, I don't have to understand it all. I don't have to fix it all. I don't have to map every outcome. I trust that God already has. And maybe that's hard for you because overthinking has been your survival skill. Maybe it helped you in the past. Maybe it made you feel safe when nothing else did, but the problem is, it's not protecting you anymore. Now, it's just holding you back. You don't need another night of fake scenarios keeping you awake. You don't need to spend another day trying to predict what can't be predicted. You don't need to keep living your life 10 steps ahead just to feel okay in the moment, because right here, in this moment, God is present. And peace is available, but you've got to choose it. You've got to stop feeding the voice that doubts and start listening to the one that leads. You've got to stop thinking everything through 1,000 times and just trust once. So here's what I'll leave you with. If you're going to overdo something, don't overthink, trust. You know what's hard for most of us, waiting, especially when God goes quiet. We pray, we cry, we fast, we speak the word, we do everything we know how to do. and still nothing moves. The situation stays the same, the door doesn't open, the answer doesn't come, and then the doubt creeps in. Did God hear me? Did I do something wrong? Maybe he's not going to come through this time. But hear me, silence is not absence. And just because you don't see, it doesn't mean God's not working. In fact, some of God's deepest, most transformative work happens in silence behind the scenes, beneath the surface, outside of your line of sight. You ever plant a seed, you don't see anything on day 1, or day 2, or even day 10 sometimes, but that doesn't mean nothing's happening. While you're pacing the floor, the seed is fighting to break through the dirt, it's pushing through pressure. It's building strength in the dark. It's growing roots before it grows fruit, and that's how God works. He doesn't always give you progress you can measure. Sometimes he gives you growth that you can't see until it's ready. But our problem is, we like results, we like updates. We want to know, how far along am I, Lord? What's the timeline? Can you just show me something so I know you're still with me? But listen, God's silence is not a punishment, it's preparation. It's where he teaches you to walk by faith, not by sight. It's where he detoxes you from needing external proof in order to keep moving. It's where he says, can you trust me when I'm not performing for you? Because real trust isn't built when the prayers get answered fast. Real trust is built when you keep showing up, even when you don't hear a thing. When you say, God, I still believe you're good even when you're quiet, you ever notice how we panic in silence? We start filling in the blanks with fear. If God's not saying anything, we assume the worst. If I haven't heard from him, maybe he's not going to do it. If the door hasn't opened, maybe it was never meant for me. If nothing's changing, maybe nothing ever will. But that's not truth talking. That's impatience, that's fear wearing a mask. You've got to remember, God is a master architect. He doesn't build blessings on weak foundations. If it's taking time, it's because the foundation is being reinforced. If you don't see anything yet, it's because the roots are still forming. If he's silent, it's because he's speaking in a language you can't hear yet, a language called timing. You want to know what faith sounds like in the silence? It doesn't sound like a shout. It sounds like a whisper that says, even now I trust you. It's when you wake up every day and keep showing up to the life God gave you, even when it doesn't feel like anything's shifting. It's when you stop needing signs and start standing on truth. It's when you stop begging for a shortcut and start embracing the process. God doesn't rush development. He's not Amazon Prime. He's not going to deliver your purpose on your schedule just because you don't like discomfort. And let me say this, don't confuse the silence of God with the stillness of your life. Sometimes what looks like nothing is actually everything. A paused season doesn't mean a purposeless one. That quiet place, that in-between space, that's sacred ground. That's where strength is forged. That's where character is built. That's where your roots go deep enough to handle the weight of what's coming next. And the enemy would love nothing more than to get you to quit right there, to make you believe that silence equals rejection, that stillness equals abandonment, but don't fall for it, hold on, trust deeper, worship harder, stand still and know. Because your silence isn't empty, it's full, full of motion you can't measure, full of answers you don't see yet, full of divine timing that will make sense later. So don't give up just because it feels like God's not moving. He is, just not in the way your eyes can track, because even in the silence he's still speaking. You know what's wild? The way we carry weight that doesn't even belong to us. We take on the pressure to fix everything, to be everything, to make sense of things that aren't even ours to understand. We carry guilt from the past, fear of the future, pain that's unresolved, and expectations that were never realistic to begin with. And then we wonder why we're exhausted, why our spirit feels heavy, why peace feels so out of reach. But here's what I need you to hear. You were never meant to carry it all. That burden you've been dragging around. That load of what-ifs and should-haves and why me, that doesn't belong on your shoulders. It was never yours to manage. Somewhere along the way, you started believing that your worth was connected to your ability to hold it together. That if you dropped the ball, if you admitted you were tired, if you let someone down, you failed. But that's not the truth. That's the lie that keeps you performing. That's the script that keeps you smiling on the outside while you're breaking on the inside. The truth is, you can be strong and still need rest. You can be faithful and still feel overwhelmed. You can trust God and still say, Lord, I need help with this. Carrying everything all the time is not strength. It's self-sabotage in disguise. Because the longer you carry what God told you to release, the heavier it gets. Not just in your hands, but in your heart, in your mind, in your relationships. You start snapping at people who love you. You start isolating yourself. You start drowning in thoughts you don't even say out loud anymore. And the worst part, you still show up, you still smile, you still say, I'm fine, but inside, you're collapsing under the pressure of being the strong one. Let me tell you something. Being strong doesn't mean you don't break. It means you know where to go when you do. And that's the invitation right now to stop knuckling your way through life, to stop treating surrender like failure, to stop pretending like you've got it all under control when your soul is screaming for relief. God never asked you to carry it all. He asked you to cast it, to bring it to him, to lay it down, every fear, every doubt, every deadline, every disappointment. And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. Because your strength isn't measured by how much you carry, it's measured by how quickly you know when to lay it down. Some of us are tired not because we're doing too much, but because we're holding on to things God told us to release a long time ago. You're carrying people that were never your responsibility to fix. You're holding on to outcomes that don't belong in your control. You're carrying shame that God already forgave. You're carrying timelines he never put you on. And now your spirit is stretched thin, not because you failed, but because you forgot you don't have to do this alone. That pressure, that drive to overperform, overthink, overextend, that comes from fear, not from faith. It comes from the lie that says, if I stop holding this up, everything will fall apart. But what if it doesn't? What if the moment you stop trying to be God in your own life is the moment things actually start coming together? What if your release is the beginning of his restoration? What if your surrender is the door to your next breakthrough? God never called you to burn out. He called you to build. He called you to be still and know. He called you to walk in grace, not hustle for worth. And the only way you do that is by recognizing this. You're not holding the world together. He is, so breathe. You don't have to be the strongest in the room. You don't have to pretend you're not tired. You don't have to fix what God is already handling. Let go, lay it down, and let God show you that what felt like the end of your strength was really just the beginning of his. Because when you finally stop carrying what was never yours to hold, you make space for peace to carry you.